Hey, it's Pete Mundo. Before the podcast starts, could you do us a favor at KCMO? We don't ask you for much outside of supporting our sponsors and advertisers. Could you leave us a 5-star rating and review? Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Helps us a lot. We so appreciate you doing that. Well, that was a quick about face, was it not? From Donald Trump yesterday and Jeff Bezos on the tariff pricing that Amazon was planning to go ahead with. Good morning, 6:05. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So it broke at about 8:30, 9 o'clock yesterday morning. And we sat here and we said this was a very dangerous political game that Amazon was considering playing, where it was reported that Amazon was going to start including tariff pricing at checkout for all goods and services that you might buy on Amazon. And the White House blew up. Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, came out and was livid. She said, well, why didn't they do that for Biden and inflation the last 4 years? Good question. The other side of this, though, was there some kind of admission that the White House was basically acknowledging tariffs will inherently, to at least some degree, increase prices. But in the end, it was Amazon playing a dangerous game. For a company that had seen profit margins increase steadily over the last several years, how transparent did they really want to be? Were they going to put their profit margins on everything as well, or was this just going to be about tariffs? Because that would have felt highly political. So then fast forward a couple hours, and Trump talked to the media, and he had this to say about a conversation he had with Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly, and he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
Yes. Jeff Bezos, good guy, nice man.
Such a nice man.
That's right. He took care of it real fast. So this was put to rest by basically lunchtime yesterday, that Amazon was not going to go ahead with this. And it's the right thing for Amazon, first off. It's the right thing for the country. If you want to encourage people to not purchase goods that have heavy tariffs on them, put a big old, you scroll through Amazon, I scroll through Amazon, put a big old Made in America banner over the products there.
Yeah.
Do that, John.
Absolutely. That's. I'm sitting here thinking about subscribing to Punch Bowl. I guess I should cancel that now, right?
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Being a boomer, I'm like, so who sent this news out? Punch Bowl.
Punch Bowl.
Well, there you go.
I'm just glad that Trump and Bezos figured this thing out like two guys, all right? Behind the scenes. Get on the phone.
Well, exactly.
No texting. Just get on the phone, figure out what the heck's going on, and Bezos, I guess, took care of it. So good on him.
I know that the opinions were divided, but I was in the go ahead, let's see it crowd. Like, let's put the tariff that's actually on there today, and then the projected one. You'll see what you're actually paying for stuff. So.
Eric Schmidt, the U.S. Senator from Missouri here, he put out a post yesterday. Amazon spent decades profiting off of America Last trade policies. First, they tried to attack Trump's trade policies with this silly stunt. Then they got hit for it. Now they're trying to backpedal. Schmidt goes on to say Amazon refuses to tell its users where most of their products are made or if and when they're made in foreign sweatshops. I bet you can guess why. But now you see they're all about transparency. That's what they want us to believe. He adds other countries have been ripping off America for years on trade with tariffs and illegal trade practices. Where was Amazon then? Absolutely silent. Schmidt adding, Amazon has operated in countries with far higher tariffs and tighter trade controls than the U.S. and never said a word. But when America finally stands up for itself, they launch a corporate PR campaign to try to stop it. That is well said by Eric Schmidt. How about a round of... There you go.
And a harumph, as our other buddy would say.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Eric Schmidt out of Missouri bringing the heat on X last night. And he adds here, and what about when Biden's inflation, energy policies, and reckless spending drove up prices to unprecedented levels for American families? Did Amazon promote price transparency then? Schmidt says, you can guess the answer.
Come on, man.
That's a nice job there by our man Eric Schmidt. And I will share this thread right now on X at Pete Mundo. You can see it there. It was very well said.
Good week for Missouri there in D.C., right, with the Pelosi Act.
Yes. Josh Hawley reintroducing the Pelosi Act to ban members of Congress from trading stocks. And now Eric Schmidt just taking Amazon to the woodshed. So well done there, boys. How about that? Very nice work. Excellent job by the two guys over there on the Missouri side of the state line. All right, Roger Marshall and Jerry Moran, you got some work to do over in Kansas. Man, that was well said by Eric Schmidt. So this thing for now is calming down. This Amazon tariff pricing and the transparency, air quotes, they were reportedly going to be going for as of yesterday morning. Meantime, you had the president celebrating 100 days in office yesterday, and he ended up in Michigan. We'll have plenty of audio from that throughout the morning here on KCMO Talk Radio, including just an all-time line from Trump.
And you Italians are going to love me.
That's right. The Italians are going to love me. I'm bringing back Columbus Day. So anyway, we've got a lot of audio from the big show last night in Michigan. But thinking about Trump's first 100 days, we started off the show yesterday saying immigration has been win number one by a mile. And if you look at some of the things that maybe haven't gone as planned, you're saying, okay, economically, there's some concern out there. Although I looked it up this morning, the Dow Jones is up 7% from a year ago today. Do you know that? All the fear-mongering in media, the Dow is up 7% from 1 year ago today. The S&P 500, most people who might have just 401ks or, ETFs mirroring the S&P, that's up 10% from 1 year ago today, which is the average over 90 years, 10% a year. So you're fine. Literally, you're fine, John.
Where's the stories about how that could or should affect us?
I know. Or we're all going to, fall off the cliff here, right? I mean, you got to be kidding me.
This may be a positive impact.
We can't have stories like that. Come on now. What are you doing? So with Trump hitting that 100-day mark, obviously a lot of attention on it yesterday. His cabinet spoke. Trump was in Michigan. I thought that Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, had a great line on what these first 100 days were really about and how Trump is moving at such a pace that in some ways he may be a victim of his own pace. And I thought Scott Bessent put this very well yesterday.
Larry, it's just the momentum. Is President Trump, the amount of momentum, the transparency, the energy that he has brought back to Washington, as you said earlier, the common sense, look at the success on securing the border. Everyone said, oh, this can't be done. And some of the targets that the Biden administration had were in the tens of thousands. And I think a few weeks ago, 9 people came across the border, most of whom we let in for medical reasons. So, it's the enthusiasm. And I think what we've really done here is deals. So we've worked on deals. There's a peace deal, there's a trade deal, there's a tax deal, and the first 100 days has set the table, and I think the next 100 days we're going to see the fruition of all those.
Set the table. That's what these first 100 days were about. Scott Bessent on Larry Kudlow, Fox Business yesterday afternoon. And the next 100 is where you see the fruits of the labor from the last 100 start to pay off. And obviously, there are some gambles going on there by the administration, most notably on these tariffs. But if they knock it out of the park, if they pass the bill that cuts taxes, if they get these trade deals done, the one thing that Democrats are hanging their hat on is that the economic plan of this administration won't work. And if it works, man, it is going to be a golden age for this party. There is a gamble here, but if it works, it will pay off in a major way. There is no doubt about that in my mind. 913-408-7957. Now, the immigration issue does remain really hot, and Trump was doing his rally last night, making the media rounds in the whole 9 yards, and there was one interaction, one back and forth in particular, that you do not want to miss. If you enjoy beating up reporters combined with some facts that are brought to the table and I don't mean physically beating up reporters. I mean, verbally beating up reporters. You'll get a kick out of this next on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. So Trump yesterday does a couple of media interviews, talked to the press, and then he had a big rally in Michigan last night to celebrate 100 days in the White House. And there were a lot of moments that stood out, but one in particular was a back and forth with ABC News that he did yesterday one-on-one. It's like Trump is like it's like an athlete who wants to go up against, let's say you're a basketball player, right? I actually have found myself watching some of the NBA playoffs, especially the Knicks, because they got a bunch of Villanova guys, and they had a tough loss last night to the Pistons. Did you have any big bets on the game last night, Mark? That was a tough way for that one to end.
Yeah, Brunson let me down.
Yeah, I know. Well, his coach didn't even have him in the game for the last 2 minutes. That was ridiculous, but I'll set that aside. But Trump's like an athlete who wants to play those he knows give him a hard time. He doesn't want, he likes the fluff interviews that he'll get from friendly media folks, but he does like to spar. There's no doubt about it. So on day 100, he chose to spar with ABC. Sat down with a guy named Terry Moran. You guys ever heard of Terry Moran at ABC News? It's totally fine if you haven't, because as you'll hear from Trump, he's never heard of the guy either.
The deer in the headlight look?
Yeah, well, they all do. But yes, he's definitely, he's top of the list in terms of deer in the headlights at ABC. So Trump does the one-on-one, and they start talking about the Maryland man. Ah, yes, the Maryland father. Break out the violins, would you, boys? Trump and Terry Moran of ABC are going back and forth over Kilmar Abrego Garcia's tattoos. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, Trump focused in on Abrego Garcia's tattoos on his knuckles, claiming that those tattoos were proof that he was an MS-13 gang member. The ABC reporter was not buying it, and here's how it went down yesterday.
Murderers, criminals in this country, we have to get them out, and we're doing it. By law. And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. That
was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry. Hey, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
Right, we'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No,
Terry.
He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
Well, we'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
Oh, Terry. It's going to be all right. Say a prayer for Terry. Terry, I gave you the big break of a lifetime. And this is how you treat me, Terry. Come on, Terry. What are you doing, Terry?
I know some of our listeners have likened the phrase, mess with the bull, get the horns. Yeah. More like a boa constrictor, just tightly squeezing.
Oh, God.
Terry, we're not going on to Ukraine yet.
Terry,
you saw the tattoos, Terry. Tell me.
I'm not done with you, Terry. Okay?
Right.
All right, Terry? Terry, why can't you just... Terry, I gave you the break of a lifetime here, frankly, because I never heard of you, Terry. Come on now, Terry. I could have picked Snuffleupagus over there, but I picked you, Terry. So be nice, Terry, all right? Oh, my goodness. So they're going back and forth on Abrego Garcia's tattoos on his knuckles, which to go back to that, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but it was tattoos that could have been interpreted by ICE members and ICE experts, according to reports, as being MS-13. But the better part, of course, of the argument is what a couple of judges determined about the Maryland father having MS-13 gang ties. That always was the part of this that was the most compelling. So Trump is leaning into it. And he's also right to point out there, more importantly, that you guys are picking on one person. One person. Didn't care one bit when 10, 15, 20 million, whatever the number is from Joe Biden's term in office, came in illegally. Didn't focus one bit on that. In fact, you bought Biden's line of, well, Congress has to pass a bill before we can do anything about the border. And Trump said, not so fast, my friend, in the words of Lee Corso. And he got the border crossings down 95% over his first 100 days compared to where they were at their peak under President Biden. That is why it is his biggest win, policy-wise, over these first 100 days. And it's not even close. And that's why he's continuing to belabor the point on this issue, because right now it is his strongest issue. It's his strongest issue for those of us here in Kansas City. It's his strongest issue, obviously, for folks on the border. I mean, you have border districts, heavily Hispanic, that were Democrat for decades, and they swung to the right, and they're now red districts because of this issue in particular. And that's why Trump is so steadfast on sticking to this issue and making sure that people understand what is actually going on down there and why he's having so much success and how all it took was a new president. Now, speaking of our new friend Terry over there at ABC News, Terry Moran, Trump also had this back and forth with him on the border.
As you said, it is an undeniable fact that illegal crossings at the southern border have plummeted, a staggering decline. But there are questions about your methods. And so I want to ask...
About my message?
Methods. About your methods. How you're accomplishing
they seem to work.
Well, yeah, my message? No, your methods. And then Trump, without missing a beat, says, well, they seem to work. Trump is truly an example of age being a number. Like, whether you voted for him, whether you didn't vote for him. And I'm a fan of having age maximums on people running for office. We have age minimums. Why would we not have age maximums? I know Congress is a great retirement gig, but that's not really what it was ever intended to be, especially for, people who are really out of it. I mean, Mitch McConnell, Dianne Feinstein, the list goes on of people who hung around and are hanging around way too long. But at the same time, Trump and Joe Biden are not that far off in age. And you see Trump with these quick, witty, one-line comebacks in combative interviews, and you compare that to where Joe Biden was at the end of his tenure, heck, even at the start of his tenure, and it's night and day. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, speaking of the border, concerns about measles coming to Kansas City. There was a big press conference yesterday by the health department. Is it fear-mongering or is it legit? We'll answer it next on KCMO. Tonight, we are going to be airing a special here on KCMO Talk Radio, the President's First 100 Days, presented by News Nation. It will feature our good friend Bill O'Reilly, along with Chris Cuomo and Stephen A. Smith. And then we will have Bill O'Reilly on the show tomorrow at 8:30. So do not miss that. Tonight, 8 o'clock, right after Mark Levin, President Trump will be on that News Nation special. So headline piece in the Kansas City Star and in other local media outlets yesterday was all circled around a press conference that was held by the Kansas City, Missouri Health Department, saying measles will inevitably hit Kansas City, leaders say. And then you had this from KCTV5. It's not a matter of if, but when. Kansas City braces for possible measles outbreak. Now, we've been hearing about this for a couple of weeks. There has been a measles outbreak in southwest Kansas, where, of course, you have a lot of those meatpacking plants, Garden City, Dodge City, down there in places like that. There are no confirmed cases right now. So this feels like health department leaders basically saying, we got to figure out how to justify our gigs. So we are going to make sure that people know we're on it. We got you covered. We're going to take care of you. So they held a big press conference yesterday. Here is Health Department leader Marvia Jones on Fox 4.
If you know that you're traveling to an area where there are higher rates, so you're going to Texas, you're going to New Mexico, you're going to parts of Kansas where there have been outbreaks, just ensure that you avoid crowds. Make sure that everyone in your family who is eligible is up to date on their vaccines.
All right, so she's no Rex Archer.
Thanksgiving. Boy, I love Thanksgiving.
We've come a long way from the Rex Archer days as KCMO health director. Oh, I love Thanksgiving. But, she's basically saying, hey, if you go down to the Branson area, they've had one case. They've had more over in southwest Kansas. Make sure that, you're avoiding large crowds, you're up to date on vaccines and the whole deal, right? But this is interesting because the way it's been framed in local media is largely based on the idea that Trump and RFK are somehow the individuals who are single-handedly allowing measles to spread. And that's just simply not true. Kansas City Star article in paragraph 2 notes health officials held a large news conference on Tuesday to deliver urgent warnings about the dangers of the disease and how quickly it can spread. The scene evoked the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic as local leaders sought to prepare the city for an approaching public health threat. To even use COVID-19 in your assessment and your comparison to what happened yesterday in Kansas City is such a disservice to your 6 readers who are left. It is so insulting. It is such a lie. It is so disingenuous. Just because a bunch of people in medical suits decided to put on a press conference does not mean that we should be invoking the days of COVID-19. Okay, please, don't. That is so awful when it comes to journalism by the Kansas City Star. I know it's nothing new. It's a day that ends in Y, but it really is a disservice. The article then goes on to note, while occasional cases and outbreaks have continued to emerge over the years, the current resurgence comes amid falling vaccination rates and growing vaccine hesitancy. The skepticism is driven in part by mistrust of public health authorities during the pandemic and discredited theories linking vaccines to autism, writes the Kansas City Star. RFK Jr., who has long sought to undercut confidence in vaccines, now leads the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. In that role, he has voiced support for the measles vaccine, but has falsely asserted that immunity from the measles vaccine wanes quickly. In fact, 2 doses remain highly effective over a lifetime. Kennedy also cut public health grants, including in Kansas City, that were helped to aid measles preparation. Kansas City and another handful of municipalities have filed a federal lawsuit over the grant terminations. So you see the goal here. Make this a big spectacle, then have some in local media carry your water, and then tie it all back to blaming who? Conservatives, RFK Jr., Trump in a roundabout way. That's the goal. Now, where did these measles outbreaks begin? In parts of West Texas. What has been happening over the last couple of years in communities across West Texas along the border? They have been flooded with individuals who, of course, no one has any vaccination reports on. The same people right now who are sitting out there and getting very preachy about making sure you have your measles vaccine. And, listen, I think it's worth getting, but I'm not your doctor. You do you, okay? Kids have gotten it. That's all I'm going to say about it. My point is the double standard that these people have on caring very deeply about making sure communities are vaccinated when they didn't give one rip about a wide open border where no one has any idea who's got what vaccines coming into the country. Suddenly now they're like, boy, we got to get communities vaccinated because of measles. It is so hypocritical. And it's like they don't even see their own double standard when it slaps them right in the face. That's what I've got a problem with. the way that they are reporting on this and the way that they are covering this from a media perspective and basically just doing the bidding of City Hall, who's upset because, God forbid, they lose a grant or two when we're $36 trillion in debt as a country. That's the other part of this that is getting wildly misreported and overblown. But they can't help themselves. I mean, KCTV5 headline, it's not a matter of if, but when Kansas City braces for possible measles outbreak. How many cases are in the Kansas City area right now? Zero. There's one in Branson. There's obviously more in Southwest Kansas when you go over there, but that's what you're talking. Those are the numbers right now, and you would think that the numbers matter here. But the numbers seem to always get buried at the bottom of all of these stories. And ask yourself why that might be, because they're hoping that you just read the headline. That's what they really want you to do. Read the headline and the rest of it be damned. That's it. And then if you happen to read the article, they come around to, well, it's RFK and Trump's fault anyway. 913-408-7957, our studio line and our text line here on KCMO Talk Radio. On the text line, I'm sure that everyone's vaccination cards were required for the millions who came across the southern border. Ding, 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 ding. We've got a winner.
Yeah, maybe I could use that to get my real ID, too. That deadline's coming up. Right?
It is. You're right.
They should use that as an acceptable ID.
I'm with you there, John. I'm on board. Jeez. Also on the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, this is a prime example of communist media propaganda in Kansas City. Oh, absolutely. It is to a T. When are we defunding National Panhandler Radio? At least take them off the docket over at KCUR, for crying out loud. My goodness. They're just as bad as the rest, John.
We're blessed with names that just lend themselves here, so the paper's the Red Star, and all that.
Yeah, here was KCUR yesterday. Measles is coming to Kansas City, health officials say.
Get your tickets now.
What's the opening act? Chicken pox? I mean, what are we doing here? Oh, my gosh. I'm not saying I want any of us to get measles, okay? I don't want measles. You don't want measles. None of us want measles. But can I also just give you this information by the numbers here? I had a doctor in town break this down for me on a text yesterday. She said measles is not a mild illness, but the level of insanity some groups achieve when discussing it in general is overblown. It should be respected, but does not need to cause an unreasonable level of fear. This doctor added to me in a private text last night. What's funny is that in 2024, there were over 127,000 cases of measles in the European population of about 740 million. Do you hear any discussion of that? No. Why? Of these 127,000 cases, there were 38 deaths. That gives the case fatality rate of 3 in 10,000. The number is likely much higher than the truth, as many cases will not come forward. So many experts state the infection fatality rate to be much lower because many mild cases will never come forward. Her point is the actual infection fatality rate is probably more like 1 in 10,000. Not trying to downplay any of this, but when the entire Kansas City media establishment yesterday spent a bulk of its news cycle on a press conference at City Hall about how measles is not here, but might be, and we've got to be in full-blown preparation mode, just color me skeptical of their motives. Because their motives, when you actually dig into it, are pretty much clear as day. And it's, how do we blame Trump for this? It's that simple. 7:05, good morning. It is great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio. Happy Wednesday. So, boy, this dictator stuff is just not working out too well for President Trump. For a guy who supposedly is all about becoming a great dictator, he's going to run for a third term in 2028. He wants to jail judges and make sure Democrats basically never exist again in this country. He did a terrible job of that last night. Terrible. Did you see the way that he treated Michigan Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer? Oh, my goodness. This is not what a good dictator wannabe would do. Nowhere close. So Trump last night is in Michigan before his big rally. And before that, he was at an event where they were basically announcing a new series of fighter jets for a National Guard base in Michigan. And during this announcement, he gave credit to Gretchen Whitmer, who is considered someone who could run for president in 2028 on the other side of the aisle. And here's what the president said.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer for bringing it also to our attention very strongly. And, I'm not supposed to do that. She's a Democrat. They say, don't do that. Don't have her here. I said, no, she's going to be here. She's done a very good job, frankly, and she was very much involved with the Republicans. They worked together on saving it, and it was not easy. So I want to thank you very much, Gretchen. Good job. Thank you.
Wait, what? Trump just said good job to Gretchen Whitmer? Trump just gave credit to Gretchen Whitmer? This is not how the dictator-in-chief is supposed to be acting towards those on the other side of the political aisle. And you can hear Trump say there, she did a good job. She worked with Republicans. She brought it to my attention, and we got it done on behalf of the people of Michigan. This is, if anybody else said that, if you strip out Donald Trump's voice and you strip out his name, and you inserted Mitt Romney, Democrats would be doing cartwheels today. Oh, this is what we need in America. Wouldn't they, John?
Well, the Nobel's in the mail, man.
That is exactly what would happen. They would be like, this is the kind of bipartisanship we've always been looking for from Republicans. But no, they can't do it because it's Trump, because of their Trump derangement syndrome. But this is the kind of stuff that they insist they long for. And then Trump does it yesterday on his 100-day celebration up in Michigan, and they don't recognize it at all. In fact, here's what came out of it. Associated Press headline here about that hug, because when Trump got off the tarmac yesterday and landed on Air Force One, he met the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, and he gave her kind of like they shook hands and gave the old pat on the back, the bro hug, whatever you want to call it. And I thought she handled it really well, actually. She was pretty smooth about it. Like, I was trying to picture Kansas Governor Laura Kelly doing one of those with Trump, and he would have knocked her over. Whitmer handled it pretty well. She did a good job.
Didn't she hide her face at the Oval Office?
Yes.
So, right? Okay, I'm following along here in the story plot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's suddenly coming around a little bit here.
Well, yeah.
And it's very smart politics of her to do this, despite the fact that, as the Associated Press wrote yesterday, Gretchen Whitmer risks backlash from Democrats as she embraces Trump in Michigan.
I think Trump knows that.
I wonder if there's little 3D chess.
I hear Gretchen. Where is she? Come on up
here. Come on, Gretchen.
Yeah,
talk
forward.
To the mic. Let's go. And here's what she said at the podium yesterday at this Air Force base.
Well, I hadn't planned to speak, but I'm on behalf of all the military men and women who serve our country and serve so honorably on behalf of the state of Michigan. I am really damn happy we're here to celebrate this recapitalization at Selfridge. It's crucial for the Michigan economy. It's crucial for the men and women here, for our homeland security and our future. So thank you. I'm so grateful that this announcement was made today. And I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And then she gives Trump a handshake on the back end. I didn't plan to speak today, but here I am. So there is a thought, to John's point, that Trump did this to tweak her. Now, actually, I think it's good for her, but it does make the Democrat Party look a little nuts when they attack Gretchen Whitmer for literally just doing her job as governor, welcoming the president of the United States, standing there at a press conference as he announces, investments in an Air Force base up there in Michigan. And then she says words that are totally platonic, totally, just very apolitical in nature. And she's getting attacked for it. Mark said his social media feed was filled with lefties going nuts. Is that right, Mark? They were not happy with old Gretchen up there in Michigan.
Yeah, they think she should be canceled for even being in the same room as Trump, basically.
Oh, my goodness. So if Trump is playing 3D chess on this one, well, he's making his political opponents look like whack jobs. For Gretchen Whitmer just doing what any decent governor should do. I'd expect Laura Kelly to do that here in Kansas. Now, I don't think she'd handle that bro hug as well as Gretchen Whitmer did, but, I'm sure she would do it in her own Laura Kelly way.
Yeah, I can see it now. Governor Newsom, I have the president on the line. Oh, crap. No, actually, Gavin Newsom in California might embrace it. He's been making that move.
Oh, he has been.
But to your point, Trump's place should be to call Laura Kelly.
Yeah.
What do we got here? How can I help you at Panasonic? Here?
Yes. Oh, man, let's get him back out here. I don't think he's been here since 2018 when he came out on behalf of Chris Kobach. And, boy, remember the name Steve Watkins for a hot minute?
Yep.
Old Steve-O.
I thought of that. It took me a few minutes.
What made you think of Steve Watkins the other day? He was the 2nd district congressman from 2018 to 2020. He won like a 12-way primary, and he was in and out in the span of he was gone in one term.
I guess I was racking my brain going when we were in the other building and had people come through.
Yeah.
He was through a couple of times.
He was. Yeah, he was. Man, that guy. I haven't thought about him in a long time. But that's the last time I think Trump was here. He did a big rally in Topeka for Kobach and Watkins, and I was there. I don't think he's been back since. So we got to get him back, get a tarmac bro hug with Laura Kelly, and see how that plays out. I would love to see it. See, Gretchen Whitmer actually looks pretty tall, so she handles it well. Trump would have to, I think, bend over to give Laura Kelly any type of a bro hug. That would be just a little too awkward. So I don't think it would quite work. It would probably just be an official handshake. If
Sharice Davidson showed her some escape moves, though. You're going to get a reversal.
Yeah. Roundhouse kick to the side of the head. Laura Kelly getting taught by Sharice Davids how to do that. Oh, coming up on KCMO on a Wednesday, we've got those tickets to see Kansas in 38 special in a half hour. Don't miss it on KCMO. And next, is there some damage control being done up in the Northland on this tragedy involving the slain Kansas City, Missouri firefighter? We'll tell you what's going on and maybe the most important discussion we are going to have on this topic next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. You're going to hear Bill O'Reilly on the News Nation Town Hall tonight at 8 o'clock with President Trump as they discuss the first 100 days, 8 to 10 p.m. tonight, airing right here on KCMO after Mark Levin. So I think there's some damage control possibly going on up in Clay County in the prosecutor's office after this tragedy here in Clay County over the weekend where you had a Kansas City, Missouri firefighter lose his life after they picked up a clearly deranged individual off a 152 highway in the westbound lanes, and she ends up allegedly stabbing this Kansas City, Missouri firefighter to death. This was early on Sunday, and it's an absolute tragedy. And now a lot of people are asking, why was Graham Hoffman, the paramedic, even in this situation with Shanita Bossell? Why? This is a woman who just a couple of days prior bit a chunk out of a Kansas City, Missouri police officer's arm. 3 weeks prior to that, she fled a hit and run. So how does this happen? The bond was set at $10,000 for this person after she bit a Kansas City, Missouri cop. That's what people are focused on, and I think fairly so. Now, I've heard from people who know the judge who have insisted that this judge actually is like a conservative judge and this was not an unusually small bond for someone who did something like this. His name is Luis Angles. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Angles. But I've been told by people up in the Northland that he's a solid judge, and had this been Jackson County, there would have been absolutely no bond. I don't know, but I'm not going to compare it to Jackson County. Just because Jackson County is totally incompetent doesn't mean that we should excuse something happening in Clay County because of it. So yesterday, the Clay County prosecutor, Zach Thompson, talked to Channel 9 KMBC. He will be on this show at 9 o'clock this morning. I want to add that as well. So if you're typically at the office by 9, Just stream us on the app, on your desktop, Google, Alexa, whatever it might be, and don't miss that conversation with the Clay County prosecutor, because we are going to ask him about some of this. Here's what he told Channel 9 KMBC yesterday.
Clay County prosecutor Zachary Thompson says his office charged Bossel with 2 felonies last week and labeled her a danger. Judge Lewis Angles set the bond of $10,000, which Bossel paid and was released according to the laws of the Missouri Supreme Court.
If you'll notice that first line of the rule, right, it says that a defendant charged with a bailable offense shall be entitled to be released, right? And in the law, when you use words like shall, it's pretty powerful.
State law says the court shall set the least restrictive condition on a defendant as is necessary to make sure they'll show up at trial.
The Missouri Constitution gives them the right to make those rules, and then prosecutors and judges are obligated to follow those rules.
Thompson said he did believe Bossel was a danger. Prosecutors do not set bonds. It's up to the judge.
So that's the judge's call, right? It's not my role to comment on that, right? It's our role to provide the information to the court so the court can make up its mind when it is setting bond and whether or not it decides to issue a warrant. In this case, we provided information that showed she was a danger to the community, and judge found that as well. And that's why a warrant was issued and not a summons.
That's Channel 9 KMBC. And that was the voice of Zachary Thompson, who is the Clay County prosecutor, who will be here at 9 o'clock this morning on KCMO. And he cites Supreme Court rule that basically says here, as you heard him just say, if you'll notice that first line of the rule, it says that a defendant charged with a bailable offense shall be entitled to be released. Well, no one's denying that. Question is, why the heck was it $10,000? You come up with $1,000 and you know what? You're on your way. Now, as he said there, he will not comment on what the bond ends up being courtesy of a judge. That's not on him. But still, I mean, I think that's the question here. That's the very fair critique of what happened in Clay County. And maybe not being in it gives us a different perspective. But I don't know about you. Somebody is 3 weeks removed from a hit and run. Somebody then tries to, bite a chunk out of a cop. You letting them walk with $1,000 out the door? Maybe I'm too pessimistic. Maybe I'll be told, you don't know how the system works. That's fine, but I got a little bit of common sense. Not a ton. John and Mark will confirm that. I got a little bit. And I'd like to think if I got people biting cops weeks after, hit and runs, probably not saying, yeah, sure, go on your merry way for $1,000. So I'm not doing that. And just because they have no idea what they're doing south of the river, I don't think that excuses incompetency in Clay County.
That seems like a middle kid argument when you're in trouble from the parents.
Yeah.
And you're all getting in trouble. You point to the other guy. Oh, yeah, look at what he did.
Oh, man, trust me, with 3 kids, one being in the middle, I know that all too well right now. Trust me, I got that last night. Last night, 1 and 2 get into an argument, and 2 is like, 1 just looked at me and gave me a bad stare, and that's why I hit her. I'm like, you don't push your sister. Knock it off. Dang it. I don't want to hear it. You don't push your sister. But she gave me the death stare. I don't want to hear it. I can't wait till they're teenagers. Really can't. But that is the argument. And I don't think any Clay County resident should be falling for that. Zach Thompson will be here at 9 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up, do we have a new frontrunner in the race to be the next pope? A total wild card you don't want to miss out of left field. Next. And very nice text rolling in here in the last few minutes, coincidentally enough, saying that you have bought your tickets to the Guy Benson event. Thursday, June 12th, we'll be out at Boulevard for a meet and greet, show, dinner, drinks, the whole deal. Myself, Keatsman, and Guy Benson from Fox News will be coming into town Thursday, June 12th. Join us. Buy your tickets now. The majority are sold out. I didn't know how quickly they were going to go, but the majority of those tickets are sold out. You can still get them right now at KCMOTalkRadio.com. So did you see, I don't know if this is showing up in the odds that you are seeing online, Mark, for the next pope, but there's a wild card here. And it's none other than the President of the United States himself.
As Pope?
Yeah.
I'd like to be Pope. That would be my number one choice. No, I don't know. I have no preference. I must say we have a cardinal that happens to be out of a place called New York who's very good. So we'll see what happens.
Maybe you can look at your odds that you find offshore there, Mark, and see if now Trump is getting odds to be the next Pope. Could you imagine? Pope 2028? When he's done with this whole president thing, he's installed as the next Pope. Oh, my gosh. The meltdowns. The people who hate religion suddenly are going to care about religion because Trump says he wants to be the next Pope, right? That's
I'm
what's happening.
100% confident that he will not be the Pope, referring to an earlier story.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident,
100%.
Seeing anything there, Mark?
Pietro Parolin looks to be the favorite right
Heavy
now.
favorite?
Heavy favorite, 9-4 odds.
Ooh, that's good.
Luis Antonio Tagli, 7-2 odds.
7-2. Ooh, okay. Is there a big drop-off after that?
Peter Turkson, 5-1 odds.
5-1, okay.
Matteo Zuppi, 7-1.
All right. How many people are getting odds right now to be the next Pope?
I mean, there's a whole slew of them, but those are the top 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There you go.
It's kind of like the NCAA tournament. You start at 64. Play your way through.
Let the Cardinals decide from there. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Those are the 4 1 seeds.
Right.
All right, so Trump's not on the list then. He didn't make the cut after that announcement yesterday. He wants to be the next Pope. That was a wild card. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina posting on social media in response to this clip from the president yesterday. I was excited to hear that President Trump is open to the idea of being the next Pope. This would truly be a dark horse candidate, but I would ask the Catholic faithful to keep an open mind about this possibility. That's well done there. Nice job. I don't think it's happening, but I like it.
Pope Donald John Paul.
Trump.
Yeah. Now Biden would have to go and follow.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well,
now what happens?
Yeah. What does Joe do then? Boy, as if it can't get any worse for Joe, Trump becomes the Pope of his beloved Catholic Church. Oh, my goodness. So Trump's doing a big speech yesterday in Michigan to celebrate his first 100 days in office. And speaking of, the Pope, who the next Pope is going to be, Italy, Trump was in a good mood yesterday. Despite the fact that 92% of the media coverage has been negative during his first 100 days in office. Think about that. 92% negative news coverage during his first 100 days in office. That came out yesterday from a study that was done and shared on Fox News is where I saw it yesterday morning. This guy, through all of that, was jovial. He had a pep in his step. He was dancing to the YMCA when all was said and done. And then he said this about our beloved Columbus.
And you Italians are going to love me because just yesterday I brought back Columbus Day in America, especially for Italian Americans who were so badly treated by its removal.
That's right. The Italians are going to love me.
And you Italians are going to love me.
Ah, yeah. Oh, man, I love it. As a half Italian, listen, I was already on board, but I'll take it. Double down, baby. Let's go.
We got to find the impersonator that did him going to Buca di Beppo.
Yeah.
Carbonara, lots of peas.
That's right. That was
lots
a good
of
one.
Bacon. They don't call it that, but it's bacon.
Oh, that's outstanding work. Yeah. So he was just classic Trump. You can tell he likes being on the road. It's like, Springsteen-esque, where he likes being in front of that crowd. He has not done it, obviously, since November 5, and he probably should not be doing it because you also don't want to be the musical act that is doing too much on the touring front where suddenly you're like, man, I can't fill this place up. You want to pick and choose your spots. And the first 100 days in a swing state like Michigan that you won is a smart place to do it. Now, on a serious note, he was talking about, of course, what the future holds for the economy. And this is something that the polling would suggest Trump is a little weaker on than he was during Trump 1.0. So he laid out the plan yesterday for what exactly the future is going to look like for this economy, trying to hopefully calm people down a little bit and get them to see the forest through the trees and to basically stop listening to what you're hearing from many in the media. And I thought he handled that very well, too, when he was talking about what this is going to look like going forward and how he's going to handle basically the economy in general, with one thing in particular at the top of the list.
We will always protect Medicare and Social Security for our great seniors with no cuts, and we will defend Medicaid for those great people that are in need. House Republicans are working to invest more money in Medicaid than we spend today. The only thing we're going to cut is the corruption and the crooks that take advantage of some of the illegal schemes.
That is outstanding. The only thing that we are going to cut is the corruption and the crooks. That's a line. I don't remember him using that line during the campaign trail, but that's outstanding. And then when it came to his tax plan, he said this.
In the coming weeks and months, we will pass the largest tax cuts in American history, and that will include no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill, and it will be the biggest bill ever passed in our country's history. It will include the biggest tax cuts, regulation cuts, military supremacy, and just about everything else. We will cut more than $1 trillion in wasteful and unnecessary spending. And in the next fiscal year, it'll all be done. We're going to have something that you won't even believe. We will end inflation, slash prices. We've already ended inflation, raise wages, and give you the greatest economy in the history of the world. That's already happening. With our tax bill, the average family's take-home pay will be at least $5,000 more than it was just a couple of months ago.
Now, I am all for cutting every single tax known to mankind. That being said, you got to have spending cuts. And I know that DOGE is doing its thing, and according to reports, they've saved $200 billion so far. But I feel like there has not been as much conversation on what DOGE is doing. And I want to hear more about DOGE. Like, I actually think that is one thing the administration has backed off of promoting that they should not back off of promoting. I want to see more about DOGE. I want to see more about budget cuts. I want to see more about slashing a $2 trillion annual deficit and a $36 trillion debt. I want to see more on that. And I want to hear about it, too. Maybe I'm alone in that, or maybe I'm not in the majority on that front. But I feel like we heard a lot about DOGE, and then like late March, it just ended. And they kind of backed off. And it's like, no, I want to make sure that we're getting a slashing of the federal government as much as we are talking about tax cuts as well.
The issue is they're not whacking enough.
They're not. They're not. They're not. I mean, I feel like they kind of, if there's one thing that they have acquiesced to the media on, it's DOGE. And I'm telling you, we need it desperately. We have one moment here to really prove to the American people that growing the size of government is destroying the middle class, and it's destroying Main Street, and it's hurting small businesses. Now's the time. Now's not the time to go with the scalpel approach. You got to go with the meat cleaver. You have to do it. And I don't want to see them back off in the name of politics because we can't afford it. We literally can't afford it. And yes, we could talk about tax cuts all day, and I'm here for it, all right? The big, beautiful bill, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Sign me up for all that. But you must shrink the size of government. And that is everything. Nothing should be off the table. The Pentagon should be looked at. Okay, I'm not protecting them. Nobody should protect them. Look at every single angle of the federal government and cut where you can cut. And then the big boulders, of course, are going to be figuring out what to do with Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. Trump said in that clip, of course, he's not going to cut them, and he shouldn't cut them for anyone who's there or approaching it. But you need to overhaul those things because if not, they will drive the country bankrupt. There's no doubt about it. So GDP data just came out here in the last few minutes. Quarter one of 2025, GDP growth comes in at negative 0.3%, below the expectations of a positive 0.3%. This marks the lowest and first negative GDP reading since the second quarter of 2022. That is when inflation took off. So not a great sign. You also have the jobs numbers that came out here. Let me get those. Private sector payrolls rose 62,000 for the month. That is below the expectations of 120,000 and the smallest gain since July of 2024. And what is the main driver of this? Well, unease is the word of the day, says ADP chief economist Nayla Richardson. Employers are trying to reconcile policy and consumer uncertainty with a run of mostly positive economic data. It can be difficult to make hiring decisions in such an environment. So if you read between the lines there, she says there is uncertainty despite the run of mostly positive economic data. That makes sense, right? That's the one thing the last few weeks has just been more about confusion than it has been about immediate economic growth. Now, do I think the administration is going to freak out about this? No, I don't. You heard Trump say early in his term here that we are too focused on quarter to quarter and not focused enough on a 100-year plan. He noted that China's got a 100-year plan and we're doing this thing quarter to quarter, and that's how we're going to end up getting our butts kicked over the long term. And he's absolutely right about that. But it also can have and result in some short-term pain. And that seems to be some of what you're seeing right now. Does it mean that people or Trump is going to back off of his game plan here? Absolutely not. He's referenced a little bit of short-term pain, but he also believes that trade deals getting done, squeezing China, combined with his tax policy is going to create an economic boom in this country. So I guarantee this storyline is going to be big today in media. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be a story. The question is, will they tell the whole story? The question is, will they talk about this from a big picture perspective or just say, oh, negative GDP for Q1, payrolls for April, not where they were expected to be. Okay, I think we all expected that. If you would have told me, are these job numbers going to come in above or below expectations? I would have guessed below, right? Because people are just kind of hanging tight right now. I think they're waiting to see how the tariffs play out. They're waiting to see what the trade deals look like. And they're waiting to make sure that the 2017 tax cuts are extended and made permanent. Because if they're not, you're going to have major tax hikes coming next year, not just for individuals, but also for businesses. Because remember, the capital gains tax that major companies use to figure out, what the next year is going to look like, those are potentially going to go up as well if they don't get the tax bill passed. So it's about big business. It's also about Main Street, and it impacts the hiring process for people as well. So those are the numbers that just came out here. Now, Trump is doing an event today, probably in part to try to combat this. This was already planned. But you have CEOs and senior executives from NVIDIA, Johnson & Johnson, Hyundai Motor, Toyota Motor, and SoftBank Group are among the more than 24 business leaders slated to visit the White House later today for an event highlighting U.S. investments. This is from Reuters. President Trump plans to promote a broad range of investments in the United States in defense, technology, healthcare, and consumer products industries and investment funds, marking his first 100 days in office at an Investing in America event. So that's happening this afternoon at, I believe it's going to be at 4 o'clock. Trump is seeking to encourage U.S. and foreign companies to expand manufacturing in the United States. So that's going to be the big push today. The White House has touted investment commitments from Taiwan chip makers, Apple, and Roche, saying that they demonstrate resounding confidence in the U.S. economy and the U.S. dollar under this administration. So that's going to be the approach today from the White House. And that is a good one. It makes all the sense in the world. 913-408-7957 is our text line and our studio line on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And we're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. On the text line, Pete, the hardest thing to do in the beginning are usually the best things to do in the long run. That's true. Now, how are the markets trading right now in the about a half hour till the open? Dow futures sliding more than 300 points after data, of course, came in negative for the first quarter. That's true. So the Dow's off 300 points right now with the market set to open up in 30 minutes. Meantime, the S&P is off 1% and the NASDAQ is off about 2%, 350 points. The Dow being off 300 points is less than 1%, by the way. And let me just throw this out there, end the hour on a positive note, because this is something that you're not going to hear about today if the markets do go down a little bit. I was looking last night. The last thing I looked at on my phone before I fell asleep, the Dow Jones over the past year, from April 30th of last year to now today, April 30th, the Dow Jones is up 7%. The S&P over the last year, which is, of course, if you're investing in just broad 401ks and ETFs and whatnot that mirror the S&P is up 10.5% from April 30th of last year to today. 10.5%. That's the historical average going back 100 years for the S&P. 10% a year. We are right on that number. Don't let anybody tell you this, oh, man, the 401k is up. Grandpa can't retire anymore. Thanks, Trump. You're up 10% year over year. You would take that every single year if you could. Stop with the drama. Stop with the nonsense. See the big picture for 5 minutes, and let's rock and roll, man. Let's do it.